Welcome to Guns, Gear, and Guns with Gary Gunderson. I am Gary Gunderson. I attended a gun auction over the weekend and picked up some new acquisitions that I was going to briefly show off and then talk about gun auctions in general with some tips and advice. I have a topic on this subject already on the channel, which you can check out here, but it never hurts to do a little refresh, and I have some additional thoughts after this most recent auction. First, going over what I got, the big items, a destroyer carbine in 9mm Bergman or Largo. This is kind of caked in cosmoline still. These are pretty cheap all over, but they don't usually have the bolt. So this makes it a little bit more expensive since it is actually complete and functional. I got this for what I think is probably about market price at $350. And what looks like a K98 or may seem like it at first is actually a Norinco 22 long rifle trainer made to mimic the K98, which I think is pretty fun and interesting. And this one was under 200, so I just kind of thought, why not get it for the lulz? Then I picked up two Moss 49 56 bayonets together for $75. I got all this ammo and this bucket of shell casings in a puppy kit bucket for $25. I picked up 100 rounds of 7mm Mauser for $7.50 a box, which I think is a good deal. And I think probably my worst buy was this 32 ACP ammo in the vintage packaging, which wouldn't have been bad, except this one actually had two empty boxes by the time I consolidated everything, because they were just spread out and there were some empty shell casings and just... yeah. So this was the most disappointing. This I paid probably market price. This I thought was a good deal. These were a good deal. This was fine. It's a good deal. This is 8mm Mauser and the bandolier, if I didn't mention. So that brings me to a couple points. One, a thing I did do was this I had an eye on, and I wrote down price and looked up what these typically go for, knowing that it was going to come up, even though I didn't really want it a whole lot, but I thought, if it was cheap enough, I would get it, and that's why I ended up purchasing this one. The ammo, I made a mistake, especially here, presuming that the things were full. I saw this ammo while I was looking through the lots at the auction, or the table full of the ammo, and I looked at it, I thought I would potentially bid on it, but I didn't, lift up every box to see if I felt any that were empty, and I didn't think to do that for a couple reasons. One, at the time, I didn't know I would be bidding on it because there was a lot of ammo in a lot of different calibers I was interested in. I bid on quite a bit, but a lot of it went higher than I was wanting to pay. But also, these auctioneers mostly were opening up boxes and saying, okay, we got some partials here, partials there. This, I'm pretty sure they did basically in just stacks of 3 and moved on to the table when they auctioned them off. And so they just never noticed. And also, since I consolidated them, it's easy to tell now, but some of them were just missing a few rounds and some were missing several, and there's some empties as well that help hide the weight difference. So that's obviously disappointing, but buyer beware, you never know unless you actually go through and look through them all, which you can do at the auction. And so that's just another thing I think is important to remember when you're attending these auctions, is that looking closely at the boxes of ammo and picking up each one to at least kind of get a feel and see if there are some empties, because sometimes they don't even open them at all and say, oh, this is a partial, this is full. And this one, they did a pretty good job, so I had some more confidence in it, but obviously it was at least misplaced a little bit. Also, condition is another thing. This trainer has a little bit of rust at the very front, but everything else is in pretty good. I'm sure that'll clean off, but it's something to take note of. There was another trainer too, and it had a lot more rust all over. And that was another thing I made a note of which lot it was specifically, which was the better model of this trainer, which was also an odd case because this auction, even though it had 125 guns, they didn't go in order of the listing, which is a first for all the auctions I've been to. Normally, if it's 1 to 125, you start at 1 and work your way through, but they were laid out randomly. And so they just kind of went and picked up random numbers from the tables. And also they skipped around a little bit as well because they had all the pistols tied up with one of the cables and a padlock, and then they couldn't find one of the sets of keys for a minute, so they kind of skipped to that. So even if it was in order, they probably would have skipped to those anyways. So you do need to pay attention to the condition of everything. Check the boxes as well as you can if you're intending to bid on the ammo, or look in the random buckets or things if they're probably going to bid it as one money, because it had some other random ammo too in it, some 7.62 by 39, some 223 shotgun. And I've gotten various lots like that over the years, and they're usually a good buy because I have so many calibers, I usually can use most of the things. But that's just how it goes there. And another thing to note is also when these came up, I was a little caught off guard because frankly, there had been a little lull in things I was interested in, and I was on my phone. And then when these came up and I was like, oh, wait. And so I was a little bit flustered, and I even for a second forgot they were 32 APC or ACP because of the 25 Patronen, which means 25 cartridges or rounds in German. And for a second, I thought it was 25 ACP instead. But obviously I figured it out, but it was just frustrating because I stopped paying attention and was on my phone, which I have a habit of doing when there's long lulls. Usually it's more when there's rifles in order. I know there's like 30 rifles between anything I care about. I'll get on my phone for a while, but overall, I was at the auction 3.5 hours maybe, and there was still a lot more to go. And that's probably when you get the best deals because a lot of people had left by the time I left. I just had something I needed to do yesterday, and I couldn't stay the whole length of the auction. There are some nice things I was actually interested in later on, a lot of random accessories, magazines, but that's just how it goes. Anyways, let me know what you think. How do you like going to gun auctions? Do you have any other advice? If you haven't watched the tip video I have on the channel, I would highly recommend checking it out if you're still listening. I go into a lot more detail and specific points. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others. Consider supporting me on Patreon and join our Discord channel. Thanks for watching.